Chapter 629. Lu Chen is definitely a man of action. If he says to buy a house, he says to buy a house. If he says to go now, he says to go now. His time is also very precious. Therefore, although Gao He and Wang Shaoling had no mental preparation, they still went to the newly opened top real estate, Shizi Haoyuan, under his instigation. 4 people shared a car. The 2 women were the most enthusiastic about buying a house. Wang Shaoling used her mobile phone to find the real estate information of Shizi Haoyuan and discussed it enthusiastically with Chen Fei, in the car. Shizi Haoyuan is located in Longxiang Bridge in the uptown of Hangzhou. It only takes a few minutes to walk to West Lake. It is also about the same distance to the nearest subway station. It belongs to the real gold scarce area. The surrounding business districts, hospitals, schools and so on are very complete. Of course, the price is also extremely expensive, and the average price is almost catching up with the capital. According to the address found on the internet, the group first came to the sales office of Shizi Haoyuan. The sales office was in the luxury clubhouse attached to the real estate. When the Mercedes-Benz stopped steadily at the door, a beautiful sales lady immediately greeted them, smiling and ready to welcome the guests. Lu Chen, who was sitting in the passenger seat, got out of the car first and happened to meet the sales lady. The sales lady suddenly froze. Her eyes widened in surprise, and her eyes were full of disbelief. She couldn't help but cover her mouth. Lu Chen smiled at her and asked, "Hello, this is the sales office of Shizi Haoyuan, right?" The sales lady seemed to wake up from a dream, nodded again, and stammered, You are teacher Lu Chen? China's Voice is popular on Zhejiang satellite TV. As one of the mentors, Lu Chen is also from Zhejiang. I am afraid that no one in Hangzhou doesn't know him, the pride of Zhejiang people. She really couldn't believe that Lu Chen would suddenly come here without any notice. Then, she saw Chen Fei, who had just got out of the car. Although Chen Fei, was wearing big sunglasses, the sales lady still recognized her at a glance. She almost fainted and felt that her heart couldn't bear it. The 2 security guards next to them were dumbfounded. As for Gao He and Wang Shaoling, they were ignored by everyone. Lu Chen nodded and then held Chen Fei's hand. He smiled at the sales lady and said, "We are here to look at the house. Let's talk inside." Lu Chen and Chen Fei had actually come to Shizi Luxury Garden to buy a house. The sales lady felt as if she had been hit by a big pie falling from the sky. She almost fainted. She quickly bowed and said, "Please." When the 2 of them appeared in the sales office of the Shizi Grand Garden, there was no surprise that it caused a sensation. The sales ladies, customer managers, and guests who came to see the house all gathered around. All of them took out their mobile phones and kept taking photos. Fortunately, the people in the sales office were smart. They quickly invited the 2 big stars to a separate VIP room and quickly informed the company's senior management. While Lu Chen and others were looking through the brochures, the big boss of the developer of the Shizi Grand Garden personally rushed over with his people. When he saw Lu Chen, the boss surnamed Lin was very enthusiastic and polite. He said to Lu Chen, "Teacher Lu, you are a noble person. You can choose any house here. No matter which one you choose, I will give you an 88% discount and give you a free parking space." In the current real estate market, 88% discount given by developers is a very high discount. Usually, it is 98% discount for loans and 95% discount for full payments. 88% discount is definitely a welfare internal price, which is used to send a big favor. As for parking spaces, not to mention, hundreds of thousands of yuan is the minimum, and millions of yuan is not uncommon. Therefore, the scope of his profits is really large and very sincere. Of course, there is no such thing as a businessman. For the top real estate of the Shizi Grand Garden, the 2 big stars, Lu Chen and Chen Fei, are undoubtedly excellent publicity. A little hype can easily raise the price of the house, and they can earn back 10 times or even dozens of times the price. How could Lu Chen not understand the other party's plan? He said with a smile, "Boss, you are welcome, but we want to buy 2 sets. One is for my friend. He pointed to Gao He and his wife next to him. Boss Lin said without thinking, that's no problem. I will give them the same preferential treatment. Wang Xiaoling's eyes suddenly lit up. Will you also give me an extra parking space? Boss Lin did not hesitate. Yes. He now wants to do a full favor, so when the time comes, he will use Lu Chen's fame to advertise. He believes that Lu Chen will not have any opinion. Lu Chen said, then let's look at the house first. The Shizi Grand Garden is a fully decorated house for sale. Its green area is more than 50%, and the facilities in the community are complete, such as a clubhouse, fountain, swimming pool, tennis court, etc. The whole building is composed of 9 independent small high-rise buildings, and a 20-story large house with a duplex structure. The environment here is really excellent. The location is quiet in the middle of the bustling city, but there is no noise of cars and horses in the center of the bustling city. Towering trees can be seen everywhere in the community, many of which are not transplanted. Boss Lin personally accompanied Lu Chen and others to choose a house. He asked Lu Chen's requirements. First, he recommended a 7-story house with a total area of 470 square meters to Lu Chen. The lower floor of this house has a large suspended living room, an open kitchen, and 3 rooms. Chapter 630. After looking at the house for less than half an hour, he decided to buy a house worth more than 30 million yuan. Lu Chen's efficiency is amazing, giving people the feeling of going to a brand store to buy a set of clothes casually. In contrast, Gao He and his wife were much more cautious. They looked at 4 or 5 houses in Shizi Haoyuan and finally decided on a 200 square meter duplex. After the discount, it was almost 10 million yuan. It was also the example of Lu Chen. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to decide on such an expensive house without a period of consideration. In fact, for most people, buying a house is one of the most important events in their life. After choosing a house, Lu Chen called Lu Shi and asked his sister in Beijing to arrange for the transfer of money. Plus the taxes and fees needed to purchase the property, the total cost was nearly 50 million yuan. The money for Gao He's house was paid by Lu Chen in advance, and later deducted from the dividends of happy entertainment. In less than half a day, the two bought the house, and they could move in with their bags. At most, they bought some daily necessities such as toothpaste, toothbrushes, towels, and so on. All the appliances in the new house are complete. After signing the contract and completing the formalities, although it is impossible to get the property ownership certificate immediately, the access card and the key can be obtained in advance, and they can move in at any time. Wang Xiaoling couldn't even believe it. We have a house? She twisted Gao He so hard that the latter cried out in pain. What are you twisting me for? Wang Xiaoling grinned and said, I suspect I'm dreaming. Gao He felt wronged. Then you should twist yourself. Wang Xiaoling said righteously, I'm afraid of pain. Isn't the effect of twisting you the same? Gao He was speechless. Lu Chen laughed, patted him on the shoulder and said, Boss, we can often visit each other in the future. Gao He said with emotion, to be honest, I also feel like I'm dreaming, old San. He looked back at Lu Chen and said sincerely, thank you. If it weren't for Lu Chen's help, he wouldn't have been able to buy a house worth tens of millions of yuan so easily. Most likely, he would have been working hard to make a living and working hard to buy a house. Lu Chen changed his life, as well as his and Wang Xiaoling's fate. But now, he had nothing to repay Lu Chen with, so he could only thank him and remember it in his heart. Lu Chen smiled and said, What are you thanking me for? You earned this house yourself. Gao He scratched his head, feeling more and more grateful. After getting the key, Lu Chen declined Boss Lin's warm invitation to have dinner with everyone. He brought Chen Feier back to his new house. This time, it was just the two of them. Standing on the open-air balcony on the top floor again, looking at the West Lake in the distance, Lu Chen held Chen Feier in his arms and said, You know what? When I first came to Hangzhou to study, I wanted to buy a house here and take root. But later, great changes happened to his family, and his idea could only become a bubble. How could he still have the luxury of buying a house? It was great luck to be able to pay off his family's debts. A dream changed his life, and it also made him meet and fall in love with the beauty in his arms. Just as Gao He was grateful to Lu Chen was extremely grateful to the god of fate, who may or may not exist. Chen Fei reached out and touched his face, then asked with a smile, "Now that your wish to buy a house has been realized, do you have any other wishes?" Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "Yes." Chen Fei was curious, "What wish?" Lu Chen said with a smile, "It's not enough to have a house. There must be a hostess in the house, right? And children." He bowed his head and said, "Can you help me realize this wish?" Chen Fei's pretty face was stained with a faint blush, and she said, "In your dreams." Lu Chen smiled and kissed her fragrant lips. Ring ring. Just after kissing for 3 seconds, the mobile phone in Lu Chen's pocket rang, so that he had to stop being affectionate with Chen Fei and take out the mobile phone. This was his private phone. Few people knew the number. Usually, it was his relatives and friends who called. It turned out to be his sister. Lu Chen wondered, "Sister, what's wrong?" "What's wrong?" The two had just been talking on the phone. "Lu," she said, "nothing. Lu Shui just called me and complained that you almost forgot her. It's going to be summer vacation. Why don't you send her home then?" Lu Chen sweated, "Then I'll give her a call and give her the key to the house." Lu Shui took the college entrance examination last year and was admitted to Zhejiang Normal University. She had always wanted to be a teacher, and it could be said that her wish had come true. Zhejiang Normal University was also in Hangzhou. This time, when Lu Chen returned to Hangzhou to produce The Voice of China, he met Lu Shui once. Because he was too busy with work, they did not see each other again during this period, and they did not make many phone calls. Now that he thought about it, he really neglected her a little. All along, Lu Chen and Lu Shui had the best relationship. Lu Chen's most cherished guitar was bought by Lu Shui with all her lucky money as a birthday gift. And Lu Chen's favorite was of course his sister. "Lu," she said sourly, "you spent tens of millions to buy a house in Hangzhou, and you can't live there for long. You're really extravagant." "I'm still living in a rented house." Lu Chen smiled and said, "Then I'll buy you one when we go back." Selling Happy Farm would bring back at least a few 100 million yuan. Although a large part of it would be reinvested in Happy Entertainment, it would not be a problem to take the rest back to Beijing to buy a house. Even if the housing prices in Beijing were much more expensive than in Hangzhou. She was not tempted. "No, the house I live in now is very good. The housing prices in Beijing are so expensive. It's really better to rent a house than to buy a house. I can live very comfortably with the interest of tens of millions in the bank." Even if she had money now, she was very meticulous when it came to spending money. She held the financial power of Chen Fei Media, and she was very clear about every cent. In fact, this was also a habit developed when her family was in debt. But on the other hand, if Lu Chen needed money, her sister would give him as much as she could. She had transferred tens of millions to pay for the house. She simply asked and did not have any objection. If it came back to her, she would be reluctant to part with it. Lu Chen knew his sister's temper and didn't say much. He just remembered it in his heart. He called Gao He, who was also in the new house, and went back together. The next most important thing is probably to sell Happy Farm. Chapter 631. The sale of Happy Farm was originally in Lu Chen's plan. This casual interactive game was a small pathfinder for his big IP plan. He never thought of holding it until he died, and quickly cashing it out was exactly what he needed. Because in Lu Chen's memory, there were many similar ideas, and he didn't have to worry about the problem after selling it. The most important thing was that with hundreds of millions of funds, Happy Entertainment could grow at the fastest speed, absorb talent, accumulate experience, and move towards a higher level. Of course, deals involving hundreds of millions of dollars were not so easy to reach. The two sides were bound to have a tug-of-war of bargaining. To reach a win-win cooperation, they needed to persist and compromise at the same time. In this regard, Lu Chen had no experience, but he had always believed that professional things should be left to professionals, so he specially hired a foreign aid team to lead the transaction negotiations. Li Mushi gave him a lot of face. On the third day after Lu Chen called her, a capable team flew from Beijing to Hangzhou to negotiate with QQ Games on behalf of Happy Entertainment. The 5-person team first comprehensively assessed the value of Happy Network and Happy Farm, made a set of detailed commercial evaluation documents, and then contacted the representative of QQ Games on this basis. At the same time, they deliberately released the news that Happy Entertainment was interested in selling Happy Farm, which immediately attracted the attention of many capital tycoons, and also added a thick stack of chips to their own negotiations. Lu Chen didn't care about how the foreign aid team operated at all. He fully let go of the right to negotiate and continued the recording of The Voice of China with Chen Fei. After the 4th episode, China's The Voice's viewership ratings had climbed to a point that left the industry dumbfounded. With a highest viewership rating of 5.2% and an average of 4.48%, it had swept the variety show market and created the highest viewership rating in the past decade. If compared with the reality talent show, only Supergirl, launched by Xiangnan Satellite TV, can be compared. However, after Supergirl, Xiangnan Satellite TV, known as the local satellite TV station Hegemon, has never launched a variety show that can be compared with it. China's Voice has become a phenomenal variety show, which undoubtedly made Zhejiang Satellite TV, which was not weak, have the momentum to challenge Shonan TV in an all-round way. Zhejiang Satellite TV premiered Full House of Romance last year and The Voice of China this year. It could be said that they were heavy-handed. The cooperation between them and Lu Chen was very good, and both their performance and reputation had been greatly improved. As a result, Shonan TV was under a lot of pressure. The domestic TV market was also an extremely competitive market. Dozens of satellite TV stations and hundreds of TV stations were fighting for resources and advertising shares. Above them was the behemoth Central TV. Although Shonan TV's current position was glorious, it was also facing a lot of challenges. Beijing Television, Shanghai Satellite TV, Zhejiang Satellite TV. Shonan TV has more than one opponent. With such a strong performance by Zhejiang Satellite TV, how could this satellite TV station, which started with entertainment, not be worried? At night, Shacheng, Xiangnan, Shonan TV building. As the night fell, the city with a population of millions of people was already full of lights. The Xiangnan Satellite TV building was also brightly lit, and the signal tower standing tall on the roof flashed with a fantastic and blurred light, becoming the most obvious landmark nearby. This 39-story building has an extraordinary influence in the domestic entertainment industry. Countless stars, including Hong Kong and Taiwan stars and artists, are very willing and even sharpened their heads to go in and record the show inside. For more than 10 years, Shonan TV has a unique style among local satellite TV stations with its flexible mechanism and bold and daring style. Many branded programs with high ratings have emerged. Whether it is influence or revenue, it is second only to Central TV. It's just that it's getting more and more difficult for Shonan TV to keep its position. In the small conference room on the top floor, all the lights were on. More than a dozen senior executives of Shonan TV were having a meeting. Everyone looked serious and their eyes were fixed on the data displayed on the projection screen. The data was like a sharp dagger hanging over their heads, making it hard for them to breathe. The person presiding over the meeting was LV Zhenhai, the newly appointed deputy director and program director of Shonan TV. LV Zhenhai, who was less than 40 years old, was the representative of the young generation of Shonan TV. He entered Shonan TV after graduating from Central Media University. He rushed up step by step from the grassroots. There was no doubt that he had great strength and skill. In the past 2 years, the predicament Shonan TV faced was precisely the most important reason why the superiors promoted this young generation vigorously, and LV Zhenhai also needed to come up with a brilliant result to convince people. He looked around, like an eagle patrolling its territory, with a frightening sharpness in his eyes. None of the directors, editors, and so on dared to look at LV Zhenhai. The atmosphere in the conference room was very depressing and dull. A newly appointed official had to take care of himself. No one wanted to provoke LV Zhenhai at this time and be regarded as a weak chicken. LV Zhenhai was a little disappointed. He reached out and knocked on the table, then said in a deep voice, "You have seen these data. This year, whether it is our TV series or variety shows, the ratings have all declined. Several ace shows are not optimistic either. It is estimated that the annual advertising revenue growth rate will not exceed 3%. How much was it last year?" After a pause, LV Zhenhai's eyes stared at a half-bald middle-aged man. The latter wiped the sweat on his forehead and replied in a low voice, "It was 5.7%. 5.7%, LV Zhenhai's lips twitched, and a cynical smile appeared on his face. "I remember in 2014 it was 11.8%, and in 2013 it reached 27%. How much has the increase decreased?" No one answered his question. Advertising revenue was the lifeblood of a TV station, especially for satellite TV stations. Money was not everything, and it was absolutely impossible to have no money. The satellite TV stations in remote provinces were almost becoming advertising stations. Why? Wasn't it because of money? Nowadays, the state subsidies for satellite TV stations were decreasing year by year. For satellite TV stations, it was increasingly difficult to maintain a balance of payments and even make a profit. Shonan TV was a big business, and its expenses increased year by year. The advertising revenue growth rate had fallen to the current level, and it was already a deep crisis. Anyone with a bit of brain could see it. Although LV Zhenhai, who just came to power, did not accept a mess, it was absolutely correct to say that it was a hot potato. The pressure on him was greater than that of everyone else present. Chapter 632. The atmosphere in the conference room became more and more depressed. An editor-in-chief of the satellite TV station reached out and pulled his collar, as if this could make himself breathe more smoothly, otherwise he would suffocate to death. The person sitting next to him subconsciously took out a cigarette from his pocket. When he wanted to smoke one, he was shocked to realize that smoking was prohibited here, so he could only put it back awkwardly. Who doesn't want Shonan TV to maintain its hegemony forever? Everyone is willing to see advertising revenue rising steadily, but the market is ever changing. The higher you hold it up, the harder you fall. Shonan TV's current situation is pretty good. No one answered LV Zhenhai's question. LV Zhenhai himself said the answer, "I've studied it carefully. Our Shonan TV's lack of growth in the past 2 years is inseparable from one person. I won't say the name of this person, but I believe you all know him. Lu Chen. All the people present are the top executives of Shonan TV station. They are the real backbone elites. None of them are fools. Of course, they know the person," LV Zhenhai said very well. As a star artist who has soared in popularity in the domestic entertainment industry in the past 2 years, Lu Chen and Shonan TV seem to be incompatible with each other. There are frequent conflicts between them. Although it can't be said that they are like fire and water, they are almost the kind of people who don't get along with each other. If it's an ordinary star, even if he is very popular, Shonan TV can still regard him as an ant. There is no need to pay attention to him at all, and they can even use their position in the circle to suppress him. But Lu Chen is completely different. The feud between the two sides can be traced back to 15 years ago. Shonan TV had just launched the Super Singer talent show. After several battles, both overtly and covertly, Shonan TV lost, and lost very badly. Singing China, Autumn in My Heart, full of romance, and now, The Voice of China, all of which are the pain of Shonan TV, like a sharp knife. Lu Chen stepped on Shonan TV and climbed to the top. Many people were unwilling to mention his name at all. Last time, Shonan TV had intended to use the Golden One Awards to repair their relationship with Lu Chen, but in the end, they were slapped in the face and almost became a joke in the industry. However, LV Zhenhai ruthlessly opened the wound and said bluntly, "I've looked into it in detail. We originally had no grudges with Lu Chen, but someone played a very bad role in it, Jin Hongwei." A name immediately appeared in everyone's mind, and some of the smarter ones vaguely understood. The reason why Shonan TV and Lu Chen have a grudge can be traced back to Jin Hongwei. At that time, Super Singer forcibly eliminated Lu Chen, not only missing a real genius, but also causing an uproar in public opinion. It was also Jin Hongwei's relationship that was strong enough to suppress the matter and make Shonan TV lose face in vain. LV Zhenhai brought up the old matter again. This is to raise a knife to chop people. Jin Hongwei can be regarded as an old relationship with Shonan TV. His Juxing Corporation has a lot of cooperation with Shonan TV, and he is one of the important figures who connect Shonan TV with Beijing's entertainment industry. This big shot in the domestic entertainment industry has inextricably linked relationships with Shonan TV. LV Zhenhai suddenly pointed his sword at Jin Hongwei, which really shocked everyone. Isn't he afraid of Jin Hongwei's backlash? Unless LV Zhenhai got instructions from the upper echelons, his head must have been kicked by a donkey to openly express his dissatisfaction with Jin Hongwei. Everyone looked at each other and didn't know what to say. LV Zhenhai's butcher's knife has been raised, and it is very likely that he is holding an imperial sword in his hand. In such a situation, does he really think that he doesn't dare to cut off his head? Therefore, smart people know to be wise and protect themselves. Even those who intend to speak up for Jin Hongwei wisely shut their mouths, not wanting to touch LV Zhenhai's bad luck. Tonight, LV Zhenhai is here to be the villain. I propose to review the cooperation with Juxing Corporation, settle the matter that should be settled, and then show our sincerity to contact Chinfei Media more. Jin Hongwei is the boss of Juxing Corporation, and LV Zhenhai undoubtedly wants to take drastic measures against Jin Hongwei. The so-called review is actually to suspend the cooperation and kick Jin Hongwei away. Jin Hongwei is known as the godfather of the entertainment management circle. Although this nickname was flattered by others, it is an indisputable fact that he has great power in the circle. However, Jin Hongwei's power is great, to a large extent, because of his long-term cooperation with Shonan TV. Once this lifeline is cut off, it is simply a pipe dream for him to want to call the wind and summon the rain in the circle. There is a trace of sadness in the hearts of several executives, but there are also a few who secretly gloat. Even within Shonan TV, there are many people who don't like Jin Hongwei and Juxing Corporation. A supervisor hesitated for a moment and asked, should we ask the leader of the company? Of course, he is talking about LV Zhenhai's superior. LV Zhenhai glanced at the person lightly and said, there is no need, this matter was decided by the top. The supervisor was suddenly speechless, and his heart completely shrank. He said this sentence, which is also worthy of Jin Hongwei. LV Zhenhai continued, now that China's voice is in the limelight, it is difficult for our third season of Super Singer to make a difference in the ratings. I have applied for a delay in production, and, as far as I know, after Lu Chen completes the production of China's Voice, he will most likely start shooting his new show, You from the Star. We have to strive to cooperate with him once, and it is naturally best to win the premiere rights. But, someone asked, didn't the talks break down last time? They have been slapped in the face once. Do they have to send their face to the door again? Where is the dignity of Shonan TV? LV Zhenhai said, last time was last time. This time is this time. As long as we show sincerity, there is no grudge that can't be resolved. Why can't we talk about it again? Everyone understood that tormenting Jin Hongwei was LV Zhenhai's gift to Lu Chen. Some people were indignant. Director Lu, are we looking down on him by doing this? LV Zhenhai was not angry. He picked up his teacup and took a sip, and said lightly, look at Beijing television, and then look at Zhejiang satellite TV. What do you think? Lu Chen is not an ordinary person. He is a star artist with the potential to dominate. Most importantly, he is very young now, he still has a long future, and his contacts in the circle have accumulated very deep, and his future is limitless. Tell me, what are the benefits of fighting him? This time, everyone was silent. Chapter 633. Beijing, Juxing Corporation's General Manager's Office. The luxuriously decorated room was filled with smoke, and the air was filled with a choking smell. Jin Hongwei sat on the spacious office table, his bloodshot eyes staring at the phone on the table, as if something would jump out at any moment. The ashtray next to the phone was filled with cigarette butts, and 2 crushed cigarette packs were thrown aside. It was a pitiful sight to behold. As the boss of Juxing Corporation, a famous management company in Beijing's entertainment industry, Jin Hongwei had always been confident and proud. He had promoted countless celebrities through his hands, and many of them were big shots. Although these big shots eventually flew away, they gave Jin Hongwei the title of Godfather of Entertainment. Although he couldn't be said to be omnipotent in the domestic entertainment industry, there were few who didn't give him face. Many newcomers and small-time celebrities racked their brains to sign with Juxing Corporation, because relying on Juxing Corporation's connections and resources, quickly becoming famous was not a dream. Therefore, in this industry, whatever Jin Hongwei wanted, he could easily get. However, in the past few days, he ran into trouble, big trouble. First of all, a big project that he had been negotiating with Shonan TV had been put on hold. This was a television series with an investment of more than 100 million. Jin Hongwei had spent a lot of money to buy the rights, signed actors, and was ready to play big with Shonan TV. He was confident that this IP adaptation could make a group of newcomers famous, wash away the poor operating conditions of Juxing Corporation in the past 2 years, and re-establish his position in the industry. However, what Jin Hongwei didn't expect was that Shonan TV had promised him very well, and the internal PR was already done. They were only one step away from signing the contract, but in the end, they were hit in the head. This directly stunned Jin Hongwei. He had been preparing to shoot this TV series for at least a year. When he was looking for investors, he patted his chest and promised the investors that the partner would be Shonan TV, and that it would only premiere on Shonan TV. Originally, this was a very logical thing to do. Although Jin Hongwei's roots were in Beijing, he had a long history of cooperation with Shonan TV. His connections were deep-rooted, and there was no one in the upper echelons of the satellite TV station who did not know him. Moreover, this cooperation was also a good thing for Shonan TV. Then why would there be a sudden change? Of course, Jin Hongwei didn't want to give up. He immediately flew to Shaching to find some connections, but his friends from the satellite TV station avoided him. They didn't pick up his calls, didn't see him, and didn't even dare to enter the TV station. It was as if he had become an evil creature that everyone hated overnight. Jin Hongwei would definitely not let it go after being rejected repeatedly. Even if he was going to die, he should at least die knowing the reason, right? But before he could figure it out, bad news came from Beijing. Many contracted artists under conglomerate filed a joint lawsuit in the court, asking to terminate the contract between the two parties. As for the reason for the lawsuit, it was mainly that conglomerate's contract was too harsh and seriously violated the artists' personal freedom. They even forced the artists to drink and eat with them. This was big news. His nest was on fire. Jin Hongwei couldn't care less about Shonan TV. He quickly flew back to Beijing from Shaching to put out the fire. He was exhausted from all the tossing and turning. While dealing with the lawsuit, Jin Hongwei asked people around to inquire about the news, wanting to know who was dealing with him. Shonan TV broke the contract and its artists betrayed them. It couldn't be a coincidence that these two major events happened together. Jin Hongwei had been in this circle for decades. He was very domineering and arrogant. He had offended many people. In the past 2 days, Jin Hongwei couldn't eat well, sleep well, and had nightmares. Ring ring, the phone on the desk suddenly rang, and the ringtone sounded particularly ear-piercing. But Jin Hongwei seemed to have grabbed a life-saving straw and grabbed the phone with lightning speed. Hello? After talking with the person on the other side of the phone for a few minutes, his face turned from green to red, then white, and finally black. Through the relationship of a scoundrel friend, Jin Hongwei finally learned the reason why Shonan TV broke the contract. It turned out that the newly appointed deputy director and program director of Shonan TV, LV Zhenhai, was very disgusted with him and decided not to cooperate with conglomerate. When he first heard the news, Jin Hongwei felt it was incredible. Because when LV Zhenhai took office, he personally went to Shaching to pay his respects. LV Zhenhai's attitude towards him was very intimate. How could he suddenly turn hostile? Then the other party mentioned a person's name, and that was Lu Chen. If Jin Hongwei was asked which star in the entertainment circle had the deepest impression, then Lu Chen would definitely be one of them. This young man, who rose rapidly in the entertainment circle, was simply a sore point for Jin Hongwei. He regarded him as an enemy. The grudge between the two began when Lu Chen rejected him. Jin Hongwei also tried to suppress Lu Chen, but the result was that he was slapped in the face again and again. Later, Lu Chen soared to the sky. Not only did he make a lot of contacts in the circle, but he also climbed up the relationship with the Li family. Jin Hongwei wanted to use some tricks, but he couldn't do anything. He could only watch the other party become the most popular star among the newcomers. And Shonan TV chose to terminate the cooperation with him because of Lu Chen. Jin Hongwei felt like vomiting blood, but there was nothing he could do. He knew that Shonan TV must be unwilling to accept the current predicament of the current decline in the ratings of TV series and variety shows. They wanted to repair their relationship with the popularity king, Lu Chen, and then gave him as a meeting gift. In the entertainment circle, who didn't know that Jin Hongwei and Lu Chen had a grudge? Shonan TV turning hostile should be the first domino to topple. The betrayal of many artists under the Assembly of Stars was probably related to this matter, but he got the news too late. And if he left the golden signboard of Shonan TV, what would he be left with? Jin Hongwei suddenly felt a wave of fear. At this moment, the room door was suddenly pushed open, and the secretary walked in, trembling with fear. "Director Jin, someone is looking for you." Jin Hongwei suddenly became furious. "What are you doing? Didn't I tell you not to disturb me? I don't want to see anyone." The secretary was about to cry. She cowered to the side, and then two uniformed men behind her came forward. One of them said in a deep voice, "You are the general manager of Juxing Corporation, Jin Hongwei. I am the deputy captain of the economic investigation team in Beijing. You are suspected of contract fraud. It's over." Looking at the two policemen who had just shown their identification, Jin Hongwei's mind was blank. He knew that he was screwed this time. Completely screwed. Chapter 634. Jin Hongwei had fallen. When Lu Chen received the news, he had just finished recording the latest episode of The Voice of China. The call came from Beijing, and the informant was Lu Shi. His sister was obviously very happy. Even Lu Chen, who was thousands of miles away, could feel her gloating mood. Jin Hongwei's fall was actually a little unjust. The cause of the incident was that Shonan TV suddenly cut off its cooperation with Juxing Corporation and killed a big project that Jin Hongwei was working on. As a result, it led to a series of repercussions, which eventually led to the downfall of this big shot in the entertainment industry. Originally, Jin Hongwei was fine. Shonan TV cutting off their cooperation would at most deal a heavy blow to his career. However, he had made too many enemies in the industry, and had been too arrogant and domineering in the past. In the end, he was reported for contract fraud and was invited to the police station for tea. Then, when the police searched Juxing Corporation, they found a lot of illegal evidence. The worst thing was that they found a large amount of drugs in Jin Hongwei's house. This time, Jin Hongwei's life was really at stake. The domestic attitude towards drug crimes had always been extremely strict. No matter how powerful Jin Hongwei was, he would still be sentenced to death if he touched this red line. The drugs he hid in the villa were not for his own use, but to control several of his artists. Such shameful methods were nothing new in the entertainment industry. Being caught in the act was a big deal. Lu Shi said, just based on the drugs he hid, he should be sentenced to life imprisonment at the very least. Jin Hongwei had connections in the upper echelons, but not only could his connections not help him at this time, they even became his death talisman. More dirty deeds were exposed, but they were controlled by public opinion, so ordinary people did not know about it. In short, this time, Jin Hongwei was 100% done for. He would basically spend the rest of his life in prison. The famous Juxing Corporation in the industry had already fallen, becoming a fat piece of meat that people in the industry fought over. To be honest, if it weren't for his sister's call, Lu Chen would have almost forgotten about Jin Hongwei. However, Lu Chen did not feel the slightest bit of sympathy for his misfortune. Instead, he felt delighted. Jin Hongwei had done so many filthy things, it was too late for him to receive his retribution. What he didn't expect was that what Lu Shi said was actually related to him. That was the reason why Shonan TV interrupted its cooperation with Juxing Corporation, causing Jin Hongwei to be pushed down by everyone, was because Shonan TV intended to repair its relationship with him. LV Zhenhai, the deputy director and program director of Shonan TV, expressed his appreciation for Lu Chen in public. Lu Shi said disdainfully, even they have such a day. If they knew this day would come, they wouldn't have done it in the first place. Her sister had always been brooding over Shonan TV's suppression of Lu Chen in the past 2 years. Today, she finally had her revenge. It's too late. Lu Chen smiled and sighed in his heart. The world was really unpredictable. After ending the call with Lu Shi, Chen Feier asked curiously, what happened? When her sister called, she was next to Lu Chen. She vaguely heard something, but she didn't hear it clearly. So, Lu Chen told her the whole story. Chen Feier also felt delighted after hearing it. This person should have been dealt with long ago. He's too disgusting. Back then, she had signed with Juxing Corporation, so she had a good understanding of Jin Hongwei's character. If it weren't for Tan Hong's help, it wouldn't have been easy to get out of this big hole. Fortunately, she escaped in time. After successfully leaving Juxing Corporation, Chen Feier opened her own studio and had a new career development. Even Chen Feier, who had always been kind and had a good reputation in the circle, was gloating over Jin Hongwei's misfortune. Needless to say, Jin Hongwei's enemies were even more so. Now that he was in prison, there were naturally some people who secretly pushed him. At least, it could make Jin Hongwei's backers shrink back. The downfall of Jin Hongwei actually didn't affect Lu Chen much. Instead, it was Shonan TV's intention to repair their relationship with him, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Although the ratings had been declining in recent years, Shonan TV was still the #1 local satellite TV station. It had a huge influence in the industry and was very strong. Although Lu Chen wasn't afraid of Shonan TV at all, if Shonan TV was willing to put down their status, he wouldn't slap them in the face and offend them to death. Because there was no deep hatred between the two sides, it was nothing more than a dispute of interests. Jin Hongwei was finished, and the original grievances could almost be resolved. If Shonan TV came up with enough sincere conditions to cooperate with him, Lu Chen could fully consider it. His cooperation with Beijing Television and Zhejiang Satellite TV was very pleasant, but it was impossible for Chenfei Media to put all the eggs in 1 or 2 baskets. Of course, Lu Chen wouldn't think about these things now, and he also left Jin Hongwei behind. While China's Voice was stepping up the recording, the negotiations between Happy Entertainment and QQ Games, after more than a week of tug-of-war, finally had a result. QQ Games fully acquired Happy Network and Happy Farm at a price of 575 million yuan, which was several times higher than their initial offer, which could be described as full of sincerity. What Happy Entertainment paid was not only the phenomenal casual game, Happy Farm, but also the subsequent development version of Happy Farm, as well as the copyrights of derivative games such as Happy Fishery and Happy Ranch. This acquisition could be described as a win-win situation. Happy Entertainment got a sum of cash that was urgently needed for expansion, and QQ Games also got a heavyweight product, which not only completely made up for the previous weaknesses, but also relied on the powerful resources of QQ to recover the cost and realize profits. On June 24, the two sides signed a formal transfer contract in Hangzhou. The negotiation team from Beijing played an important role in it. Without the help of several foreign aid, it was really impossible for Happy Entertainment to bite off a piece of meat from QQ Games alone. And this deal also caused a great sensation in the industry. Everyone didn't expect that the newly emerged Happy Entertainment would actually sell the hen that laid the golden eggs. In many people's view, Happy Entertainment was killing the goose that laid the golden eggs, and even looked down on Lu Chen, the actual controller of Happy Entertainment, a little bit, thinking that he didn't have a long-term vision and only cared about the small profits in front of him. Lu Chen just smiled at such remarks. Others only knew that he sold a golden hen, but they didn't know that he had a flock of golden hens. He sold one in order to build a bigger and better chicken coop in a short time. The start of happy entertainment has just begun, and Happy Farm will by no means be the last glory. Chapter 635. 575 million, QQ Games bought Happy Network, and Happy Farm changed owners. This news spread all over the country at the speed of light, and unsurprisingly became the focus of heated discussion on the internet. As a small company that has just been established for less than half a year, Happy Entertainment, with a registered capital of only 5 million, has undoubtedly created a legend in the industry. More inside stories were dug out, and the most talked about was the owner of Happy Entertainment, Lu Chen. Many people felt that their common sense had been subverted. Lu Chen made his debut as a singer. His musical talent has long been recognized. After he became famous, he wrote and acted in 2 popular TV series, and then launched a movie with a box office of more than 1 billion. His ability to make money simply made people envious and jealous. But who would have thought that Lu Chen's investment in the game industry also had such a brilliant vision, and insiders revealed that the idea of Happy Farm came from Lu Chen himself. Tall, handsome, talented, and strong ability to invest and make money, the young and unmarried Lu Chen has become the most dazzling diamond bachelor in the entertainment industry. Chen Feier jokingly said to him that if he moved to Xiangjiang or Baodao and had the will, it was estimated that many women inside and outside the circle would be willing to fight for the position of the second wife or third wife. For such a statement, Lu Chen wisely chose to pretend to be deaf and mute. Chen Feier's jealousy was also quite strong. But some things can't be pretended to be deaf and mute. Right now, he was in the limelight too much, and the quick money was a bit hot. After careful consideration, Lu Chen discussed with his sister and others, and the funds from the sale of Happy Farm were distributed after taxes were deducted. First, they bought a 2-story office building in the newly completed Huana Digital Building in the Binjiang IT Industrial Park, with a total area of 2,200 square meters, as the new headquarters of Happy Entertainment, and then recruited staff. The Huana Digital Building was one of the landmarks of the industrial park, and the price was naturally not cheap. Happy Entertainment paid 70 million for it. Lu Chen took out another 150 million yuan as a dividend. He personally received 120 million yuan, and another 15 million yuan was given to Gao He and his wife. The other 15 million yuan was rewarded to all the employees of the company according to the proportion of contribution. The least amount was tens of thousands. It could be said that everyone was happy. Of course, because Lu Chen paid for the house last time, most of the dividends of the Taka couple returned to Lu Chen's hands. The remaining 270 million would be used for the expansion of the company's operating funds, which would be invested in the purchase of equipment, the increase of professional staff, and new projects. Finally, Lu Chen announced on his personal blog that he would donate 100 million yuan to the Chen Fei Charity Fund to expand the scope of the charity fund's assistance. It would no longer be limited to assistance for poor leukemia patients, but it would also increase the number of assistance programs for poor children and adolescents. Such a large donation immediately caused a sensation in the country. It's not new for stars to do charity. There are also many artists in the circle who are good at donating, but it's really the first time for Lu Chen to donate hundreds of millions of yuan at one time. Most importantly, after more than a year of operation, the Chen Fei Charity Fund had established a very good reputation among the public. Information was open, and the accounts were clear. It had actually helped many poor leukemia patients. Compared with the show-style donations of many stars, and those charity organizations that are heavily shady, the Chen Fei Charity Fund co-founded by Lu Chen, Chen Fei, and them was undoubtedly a real clean stream. On the second day after Lu Chen announced the donation, the official V of the Chen Fei Charity Fund posted a 100 million yuan check on his blog to prove that Lu Chen wasn't just talking, but actually took out real money. In this way, the after-tax proceeds from the sale of Happy Farm were basically spent by Lu Chen. On June 28, China Youth Daily published the news of Lu Chen's donation of 100 million yuan on its front page. While introducing Lu Chen in detail, it praised him as a model of young artists in the new era. China Youth Daily was a major newspaper at the central level. To be able to get positive reports and honorary praise from China Youth Daily was equivalent to putting on a thick layer of protective armor for Lu Chen. If the ordinary media wanted to discredit him, they would have to weigh the consequences. After the article in China Youth Daily was published, Li Murong, who was far away in Beijing, took the initiative to call Lu Chen for the first time, and praised him a lot in his words. The eldest son of the Li family is extremely low-key in the circle and lives an almost semi-secluded life. Lu Chen met Li Mubai, and then met his eldest brother, but he only met him a few times. Usually, the contact between the Li family and Lu Chen is completed through Li Mushi and Li Mubai. Li Murong basically doesn't ask about his younger brother and sister's affairs. So, it's really not easy for him to take the initiative to call Lu Chen. Li Murong revealed on the phone that the reason why Lu Chen was able to get the focus of China Youth Daily and even be held up as a model was not only because Lu Chen donated 100 million yuan, but also because as an artist, his image has always been very good. There were no scandals, and even few scandals. Nowadays, the domestic entertainment market is getting bigger and bigger, and the entertainment industry has become a considerable part of the national economy. But when the plate is big, some chaos is inevitable. Especially nowadays, star artists often take drugs, go whoring, have an affair, and drive drunk. In order to get ahead, they will do anything. There is no bottom line in all kinds of hype. The image of the entertainment industry in the public is getting worse and worse. Of course, the relevant state management departments can't ignore this. It is imperative to stir up turbidity and clear up turbidity. Lu Chen also happened to enter the line of sight of the senior management. With this honor in hand, as long as he doesn't make a mistake, there will be no big obstacles to his future development in the upper levels, and he can even get a lot of help. Don't look at him throwing out 100 million yuan now. What he can get in the future is far more than that. Li Murong and Lu Chen talked on the phone for more than half an hour. After that, Lu Chen thought quietly for a long time alone, and had new ideas about his future path. Until Chen Fei, who was dressed up, came in and said, "Are you ready? We can almost go." Lu Chen came to his senses, got up and said, "Okay, let's go." Chen Fei, asked curiously, "What were you thinking about just now? You look like you're lost in thought." Lu Chen shook his head and said, "Nothing. Let's go quickly, lest little Shui gets anxious." Chen Fei, didn't ask much. She carefully tidied up Lu Chen's shirt, and then reached out to take his arm. The two looked at each other and smiled, and everything was said without words. Chapter 636. Zhejiang Normal University, Room 405, Building 5, Girls' Dormitory Building. 2 sets of bunk beds and a double desk filled up the small room, leaving only a space for walking in the middle. However, both the walls and the floor were clean and tidy. There were many adorable decorations in the room, and there was a faint smell in the air. It was the unique smell of young girls. Lu Shui sat cross-legged on the bed, holding her mobile phone and lost in thought. She had been studying at this university for a year, and in a few days, she would go home for the summer vacation. Last year's college entrance examination, Lu Shui did very well. With her grades, it was no problem for her to enter a better university, but she still chose Zhejiang Normal University because she had always wanted to be a teacher. How good it was to be a teacher! Not only did she have weekends, but she also had summer and winter vacations. She could reprimand the naughty children. Moreover, Lu Shui was studying art. It would be even easier to be an art teacher in the future. She liked drawing, and she had a talent in this area, which was the most suitable. Lu Shui was also very happy during this year of university life. She had established a good relationship with the other 3 girls in the dormitory. She had her own bosom friends, and her life had entered a new stage. Most importantly, she had a brother that everyone envied. It was just that since entering Zhejiang Normal University, Lu Shui had never mentioned her brother to others. The main reason was that she didn't want to be the object of others' criticism. But today's situation was different. Squeak! The door of the room was pushed open, and 3 girls came in, talking and laughing, which also interrupted Lu Shue's thoughts. Xiaoxue, didn't you say that someone wanted to invite us to dinner? It's almost 5:00 now. The one who spoke was the eldest of the four girls, Wang Yan, a Xiang girl with a shrewd and straightforward personality. Did someone stand you up? Then let's go out and eat by ourselves. We'll split the bill. The girl in the red dress behind Wang Yan pursed her lips and smiled. Whoever dares to stand up our little sister Xiaoxue will be banned. The girl in the red dress was Lin Yuyan, a native of Hangzhou. She was the most beautiful of the four girls. She was the flower of the Chinese department, so she usually had many suitors, but she had high standards and was still single. Lin Yuyan and Lu Shui hit it off the best, and their relationship was extremely good. The last girl in a white dress was called by Fang Fang. She was from Shanghai. She was beautiful and smart. She asked curiously, Xiaoxue, can you tell us who's treating us? Could it be a secret lover that you have hidden outside? Lu Shui blushed and reached out to pat Bai Fang Fang. What secret lover? That sounds awful. That's my brother. Your brother? Bai Fang Fang nimbly dodged to the side and said in surprise, your brother? Since when did you have a brother? I've never heard you mention him before. Is he a lover? Wang Yan and Lin Yuyan laughed so hard that they were trembling. Lu Shui was completely speechless. She could only make a disdainful gesture at Bai Fang Fang and did not want to explain any more. They would be in for a treat later. The brightest star in the night sky, at that moment, her phone suddenly rang. The ringtone was Lu Chen's, the brightest star in the night sky. Lu Shui's eyes suddenly lit up. She could not care less about Bai Fang Fang and picked up the phone as fast as she could. Brother? Yes, I know. I'll be right there. Wait for me. Bai Fang Fang and Wang Yan looked at each other. Was it really Lu Shui's brother who invited them to dinner? Lu Shui hung up the phone and waved it at them proudly. My brother is outside the school. Let's go together. Lin Yuyan was surprised. Xiaoxue, is that really your brother? Lu Shui could not help but roll her eyes. She said with certainty, yes, he is my brother. Seeing her so serious, everyone finally believed her. Ah. Wang Yan quickly said, then I need to comb my hair first. It'll be done in a few minutes. Me too. Then I'll touch up my makeup. Although it was said to be a few minutes, when the girls started to dress up, the time really did not count. If it were not for Lu Shui's frequent urging, it was estimated that they would not be able to leave the dormitory for at least half an hour. Even so, when they arrived at the dormitory, it was already past 5:00. Xiaoxue, a tall boy, came over with a bouquet of flowers and stared eagerly at Lu Shui. Outside the entrance of the female dormitory, there were often many boys waiting. Most of these boys were not from the school. They were either there to woo a girl or to take her out on a date. It was a sight to behold in the university. Usually, all kinds of confession, courtship, and even marriage proposals were frequently seen. Everyone was already used to it. This boy was nearly 1.8 meters tall, fair and clean, at least much better than the ugly boys next to him. But in Lu Shui's eyes, he was no different from a fly. She stopped, frowned and said, Wu Hao, I'm not that familiar with you, so don't call me Xiaoxue. What do you want? The tall boy showed a trace of frustration and immediately smiled. Xiao. Lu Shui, I want to invite you to dinner and then watch a movie tonight. How about it? I've already bought the tickets. Lu Shui lightly said, thank you, but I already have an appointment. Goodbye. She didn't even pay attention to the flowers that the other party offered her and pulled Lin Yuyan away. This Wu Hao was her senior, but he was just a student in the Chinese department. Relying on his talent and family background, he kept pestering her, which annoyed her. She never gave him a good face, let alone today. Wang Yan and Bai Fang Fang quickly followed. Wang Yan and Wu Hao knew each other. Chapter 637. Lu Shui quickened her pace and trotted. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on her body, as if she was covered with a light golden coat. Her long hair and skirt were flying, and the joyful smile on her face was like a blooming summer flower, with an indescribable youthful beauty, which made people standing on the roadside stare at her. However, like a bird flying to the woods, she threw herself into the arms of the tall young man standing beside the Mercedes-Benz. Alas! People who saw this scene all sighed in their hearts, with indescribable complex feelings. Wu Hao, who had just appeared at the school gate, also happened to see this scene. He suddenly felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He never dreamed that the goddess he admired would be so intimate with another man in public. A stream of hot blood rushed into his brain, and Wu Hao immediately lost his mind, suddenly speeding up his pace and rushing forward. But when he was a few steps away from the young man, he suddenly felt guilty and timid, because the young man wearing sunglasses was taller than him, and although he couldn't see his face completely, he was definitely more handsome than him. Moreover, he was rich. This Mercedes-Benz exuded a luxurious atmosphere, and it couldn't be bought without 1 or 2 million yuan. This was a real tall, rich, and handsome man. Wu Hao's family was not bad, but compared with this man, there was no comparison at all. Little Lu Shui, who is he? Wu Hao was extremely unwilling to run over, and after struggling in his heart for a few times, he still opened his mouth to ask. Lu Shui turned her head and saw Wu Hao. She couldn't help but be stunned, and immediately showed a look of disgust. Wu Hao, I have nothing to say to you, please don't harass me in the future, thank you. The tall man holding Lu Shui frowned, and his breath suddenly became cold. Wu Hao suddenly felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave, not only because of Lu Shui's disgust, but also because of the invisible pressure exerted by this man. His lips moved a few times, and he wanted to say something, but he couldn't say anything. In the end, he turned around and left with no face. If he continued to stay, he would be humiliated. In addition to becoming a joke, what else could he do? Lu Shui grumbled discontentedly. The tall man shook his head and let her go. At this time, Wang Yan, Bai Fangfang, and Lin Yuyan all rushed over. Wang Yan glanced at Wu Hao with disgust as he brushed past her. She never had a good impression of this sticky candy. Her girlfriends looked at the tall man curiously. This is Lu Shui's brother? How cool. Lu Shui quickly introduced, brother, they are all my roommates. Let's get in the car first. It was too eye-catching here. The small accident just now had attracted a lot of attention. She did not want to expose her brother's true colors immediately. The tall man nodded and said, okay, let's talk in the car. He opened the car door for the girls in a gentlemanly manner. Lu Shui naturally sat in the front passenger seat, while Wang Yan and the other two sat in the back seat. After getting in the car and closing the door, cutting off the sight from the outside, Lu Shui finally let out a sigh of relief and officially introduced him to her friends. This is my brother, Lu Chen. Lu Chen took off his sunglasses and turned to the three girls with a smile. Hello. Wang Yan, Bai Fangfang, and Lin Yuyan were stunned. They would never have dreamed that Lu Shui's brother was Lu Chen, the Lu Chen who sang, You Who Sat Next to Me, the Lu Chen who starred in Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance, and the Lu Chen who filmed A Chinese Ghost Story. He was also one of the 4 mentors of China's Voice, Lu Chen. No one could believe their eyes, but the truth was right in front of them. They had no choice but to believe it. Wang Yan mumbled, Oh my God, I'm not dreaming, am I? Lin Yuyan looked at Lu Chen without saying a word, her pretty face blushing shyly. She was a fan of Lu Chen and often mentioned Lu Chen in front of Lu Shui. Who would have thought that Lu Shui was Lu Chen's biological sister? Bai Fangfang snapped out of her daze and grabbed Lu Shui's arm, gritting her teeth and saying, Well done, Lu Shui, you actually hid your brother so deeply. How many feelings have you cheated on us? Lu Shui giggled and begged for mercy. Haven't I introduced him to you now? She then added, Besides, there's no point in telling you. My brother already has a girlfriend. Lu Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry. Wang Yan, Bai Fangfang, and Lin Yuyan all blushed. Who didn't know that Lu Chen's girlfriend was Chen Fei, the queen of the music industry? They were the best couple in the entertainment industry. Damn Xiaoxue, what nonsense are you talking about? Lu Shui proudly introduced her 3 roommates to Lu Chen, and the atmosphere in the car finally returned to normal. Lu Chen said, "Thank you for taking care of Xiaoxue. She's very naughty. She must have troubled you a lot, right?" The 3 girls immediately turned into good ladies and said that it was no trouble at all. Xiaoxue was very good. In the midst of laughter, Lu Chen drove the 4 girls to a private club that had a reservation. Private clubs first appeared in Beijing, and later spread to the big cities in the south. Of course, Hangzhou also had high-end private clubs. Usually, only members could enter this special circle to spend money. This club was very famous in Hangzhou. Lu Chen relied on Tian's recommendation to get a membership. Of course, with his current identity and fame, except for a few top circles, there were few people who were not willing to accept him. In the reserved private room, Chen Fei, and Tian were already there. Sister-in-law. Seeing Chen Fei, Lu Shui's mouth seemed to be smeared with honey. "You've become a lot more beautiful." She directly blamed Chen Fei, Chen Fei, really doted on Lu Shui. It was not just the kind of love that extended to her, but the kind of love that came from the heart. She hugged Lu Shui and chatted intimately. She also took out a gift that she had already prepared for Lu Shui. A Cartier diamond bracelet. Lu Shui happily smiled and introduced her 3 friends to Chen Fei, Seeing Chen Fei, Wang Yan, Bai Fangfang, and Lin Yuyan were a lot more reserved. Because even Lin Yuyan, the most beautiful of the 3, was crushed by the heavenly queen of the music industry in all aspects. The only advantage she had was probably her youth. In terms of appearance, they couldn't even compare to Tian. Chen Fei didn't put on the airs of a big star. She was very easygoing and polite to Lu Shui's 3 friends. She smiled and talked freely, and soon the atmosphere in the private room became harmonious. Lu Chen was really happy. The room was full of pleasant fragrance. Lu Shui's 3 roommates at least had the appearance of an average person. It was not an exaggeration to say that all of them were young and beautiful. Although he had no other desire besides Chen Fei, he still felt a kind of intoxicated feeling. Chapter 638. The first season of The Voice of China premiered on Zhejiang Satellite TV station on May 19. By the time colleges and universities across the country began their summer break, it had already aired 7 episodes in a row. This new form of reality singing talent show attracted a lot of attention from the beginning. The lineup of 4 big-name mentors was eye-catching, and the premiere episode's ratings did not disappoint either. The average rating was 2.26%, with the highest rating exceeding 2.50%, reaching the top of the domestic TV variety rankings in one fell swoop. However, what really shocked people was yet to come. In the following few episodes, The Voice of China simply swept the market. The ratings continued to rise, easily breaking through the phenomenal threshold and becoming the most eye-catching variety show in recent years. By the 7th episode on June 30th, the average viewership rating had reached an outrageous 6.35%, directly crushing the second-ranked talent show into dregs. While the industry colleagues were shocked, they also conducted in-depth research on The Voice of China. The Voice of China was undoubtedly very unique. In terms of format, it had many innovations compared to the previous programs of the same genre that quickly became routine. The most obvious was undoubtedly the 4 rotating chairs for mentors. The concept of the blind selection by the mentors was really amazing. First of all, it ensured the fairness of the selection. It did not look at the person or face, only listening to the voice. It was completely in line with the theme of the show. After The Voice of China became popular, there were many parody shows on the internet. Many netizens used their own or office chairs as props to imitate the blind selection of the mentors. The funny short videos were quite popular and had a high number of views. Then, the two-way selection of the mentors and contestants was another highlight. In previous shows, the judges chose the contestants, but the contestants of The Voice of China could choose their mentors. As long as more than one mentor turned their back during the blind selection, they would have the right to choose. When multiple mentors turned their backs, the mentors would even fight for the contestant. Big increased the interest of the show, adding more suspense to the selection, so the audience felt that it was particularly attractive. Later on, when the mentors' teams competed against each other, it would undoubtedly capture the audience's hearts. Other than these highlights, China's Voice also had quite a few minor details. For example, in the show, the singers were only allowed to sing Chinese songs. Foreign songs were not allowed to appear on stage. Although some singers who excelled in English songs expressed their dissatisfaction with this, they were unable to sway the producer's decision. Don't think that it was just a small rule, but it gave the audience a very good impression and recognition of China's Voice. That was because in past singing talent shows, there were many singers who liked to sing in English. However, many of the judges were especially fond of it, and the vast majority of the audience could not understand it. Thus, there was an invisible distance between them and Big. With a novel concept coupled with down-to-earth rules, outstanding contestants, and a strong team of mentors, The Voice of China's success was by no means a fluke. The extremely high viewership ratings of China's Top Voice had also brought great benefits to the show's producers and broadcasters. First of all, Star Factory Media was an unknown newcomer in the circle. Apart from the small circle in Hangzhou, no one knew about it. But now, the name and logo of Star Factory Media were transmitted to thousands of TV screens along with China's Top Voice. The limelight was so strong that it embarrassed its peers, and the people seeking cooperation were almost breaking the threshold. China's Top Voice, produced by Star Factory Media, signed a VAM agreement with Zhidong Satellite TV. The money was calculated according to the ratings. The higher the ratings, the more money it could get, so the rising ratings brought Star Factory a rolling source of money. However, Zhidong Satellite TV was very happy to pay the money, because the ratings of the program were directly linked to advertising income. Although the price of the title sponsorship, insertion, and other advertising contracts in the early stage were not very high, but if a new brand wanted to squeeze in, it would have to pay a lot of money. In addition, Zhidong Satellite TV also had the advertisement for the Voice concert in their hands. Now the price tag had been raised to a staggering level, and there were many big brands seeking advertising cooperation for the next season. Therefore, no matter how much money was given to Star Factory Media, it was nothing compared to these advertising fees. In such a good situation, Zhidong Satellite TV is planning to hold an open tender for the advertising of the second season of China's Top Voice next year, according to the model of CCTV. Zhidong Satellite TV will definitely make a lot of money, but making money is one thing. On the other hand, Zhidong Satellite TV has made a great turnaround in variety shows, and has greatly expanded its own influence. China's Top Voice is so popular that Shonan TV's Super Singer and Beijing Television's Singing China, which were originally scheduled to start in June, have been delayed, and the auditions are expected to start at the end of July. Although the explanation given by the two satellite TV stations is organizational reasons, everyone knows that this is just an excuse. The real reason is that neither of them has any confidence to fight head-on with China's Top Voice, and in order to ensure the ratings, they have to avoid the sharp edge. Beijing Television is one thing, but Shonan TV, as the number one overlord of the local satellite TV stations, has also chosen to avoid the battle. Even if it is a wise move, it still makes people feel very different. In addition to Star Factory Media and Zhidong Satellite TV, the four mentors have also gained a lot of popularity and attention through this program. Lu Chen and Chen Fei were already very popular. Shifeng and Liao Jia have truly returned to the public's attention, and on the basis of their original deep foundation, they have reached a new height. As for the students, the singers who performed the best in the first 7 episodes have become popular. Their personal tiaba has been quickly established, the number of followers has skyrocketed, and they have their own market value. The most typical example is Anshin, the originally unknown bar singer, who was offered a price of more than 100,000 yuan for a performance. Although it was only a temporary offer, it was enough to prove her popularity. This is the cluster effect brought about by a phenomenal program. Everyone is a winner, and the brand effect formed by China's top voice, in a short period of time will only bring more and more benefits. This well-known brand belongs to Star Factory Media, and Lu Chen and Chen Fei jointly hold a large amount of shares in Star Factory Media. Compared to Lu Chen's previous investment in Happy Entertainment, the return is not inferior at all. This undoubtedly once again put a new halo on Lu Chen. On July 2nd, Lu Chen drove from Hangzhou to his hometown in Binhai with Chen Fei, and Lu Shui, who had just finished her summer vacation, plus a special guest. Chapter 639. The first season of China's Voice had a total of 14 episodes, with a grand concert to be held in Hangzhou at the end, making it 15 episodes in total. By the time Lu Chen left Hangzhou to return to his hometown, all 14 episodes of the show had already been recorded. This was also the usual practice for domestic talent shows. What the audience saw on television was not a live broadcast, but content that had been meticulously edited to achieve the best effect. In addition, there were also the judges and mentors. It was impossible for them to stay in the same place for 2 to 3 months, or to travel back and forth once a week for the recording. After recording 14 episodes, Liao Jia returned to Beijing. He would film 2 commercials in Beijing and make a cameo appearance in a movie before flying to Australia for a vacation. He would return to Hangzhou in late August to participate in the Voice of China's concert. Lu Chen and Chen Fei stayed in Hangzhou for 2 more days. After Lu Shui's summer break ended, the 3 of them went to Binhai together. However, they brought another guest with them. That was Shifang. After spending more than a month together, Shifang and Chen Fei became very good friends, and did not treat Lu Chen as an outsider. Although in terms of status in the circle, Shifang's seniority is higher than Lu Chen and Chen Fei, but she interacts with the 2 of them on the same generation and calls them sisters and brother. Originally, after recording China's Voice, Shifang was going back to Xiangjiang. However, when she heard that Lu Chen was going back to his hometown, she was interested to see the scenery of Binhai and pay a visit to Lu Chen's mother. How could Lu Chen not welcome her? The 3 of them became 4, and a Mercedes-Benz was just right. Lu Shui was overjoyed. She was Shifang's fan, so she took the opportunity to get intimate with her idol. She took more than 10 photos with her phone. Hangzhou was not far from Binhai, and it only took 2 hours on the highway. The group set off at 2 p.m., and arrived at Binhai city around 4 p.m. Shifang curiously looked at the street view of Huhai through the window and said in surprise, "Your hometown is very prosperous." Although Binhai was a county-level city, because it was located on the southeast coast, and there were many businessmen and factories in Binhai, the local economy was very prosperous, and the urban construction was changing with each passing day. Although it could not be compared with a provincial capital city like Hangzhou, there were also tall buildings on both sides of the main road, which was very imposing. Lu Chen smiled and said, "It's not bad. It's been developing quite fast in the past few years. A lot of tall buildings have been built." Shifang sighed and said, "When I was in Xiangjiang, I often heard people say that except for Beijing, Shanghai and Shenhua, the other places in the mainland are very backward." But in the past 2 years, her complexion not only recovered to its original appearance, but also became even better. When she stood together with Chen Fei, people would believe that she was a sister. No wonder Shifang was surprised. Fang Yun smiled, "Miss Shi is really young and beautiful. Let's go inside and talk." In the evening, Fang Yun cooked in person and used all her strength to make a table of delicious food for the guests who came from afar, which made Shifang eat full of praise. People like her, who usually paid great attention to diet, ate until they were 80 or 90% full. The dinner was joyous and harmonious. After dinner, Chen Fei, and Lu Shui scrambled to wash the dishes. In the end, Lu Shui won. Chen Fei had to take Shifang to have tea and chat with her. Lu Chen also had something to say to his mother, "Mom, I bought a big house in Hangzhou. Now Lu Shui is also studying in Hangzhou. Why don't you also move to Hangzhou, so that you won't be lonely here. Fang Yun shook her head with a smile and said, I haven't retired yet. Why should I go to Hangzhou? Besides, although you are not here, I am not lonely. I have no relatives or friends in Hangzhou. Don't worry about me. I am very good now. If you really care about your mother, then marry Fei, as soon as possible and have a child for me to take care of, so that I won't be lonely. What his mother said was so reasonable that Lu Chen was speechless. In fact, no matter how successful he was outside and how much money he made, the most nostalgic thing in his heart was still the days when his family was together and lived happily together. Chapter 640. Originally, Lu Chen planned to stay in Binhai for 3 days and take Shifang to enjoy the local scenery of Binhai. Although Binhai was only a small county-level city, due to its proximity to the sea and mountains, the scenery was quite good. There was a foray tourist attraction with famous landscapes such as Foshan Fog, Millennium Grotto, Dawn of the East Sea, etc. There were also fishing villages, ancient towns, small rivers, and other cultural attractions. It was not a problem to play for 3 days. However, plans could not keep up with changes. On the second day in Binhai, Lu Chen took Chen Fei, and Shifang to Foshan's ancient Buddha temple to play. In the end, they were recognized by worshippers and were surrounded, almost unable to escape. Now that everyone had a mobile phone, all of them had access to the 4G network. The photos taken on the spot could be instantly sent to the network, so everyone soon knew that 3 big stars had come to Binhai City. Since the broadcast of Autumn in My Heart, the year before last, Lu Chen had become a well-known star in Binhai City. Many citizens could not say the mayor's name, but they all knew that Lu Chen was a true Binhai citizen. Although Binhai City's history could be traced back to the Song and Yuan dynasties, there were not many local cultural celebrities. A star like Lu Chen was definitely the first, so it was natural that he received a lot of attention. Even in the government, Lu Chen has been recommended as a local cultural business card. Therefore, even if it was just Lu Chen being photographed at the ancient Buddha temple, it would definitely be enough to blow up the local Feishin's WeChat moments. Now with the addition of the 2 big stars, Chen Fei, and Shifang, the sensational effect was definitely not as simple as 1 + 1 + 1 is equal to 3. Especially now that China's Voice was extremely popular, the 4 mentors were in the limelight, and 3 of them appeared in Binhai at the same time. The impact was imaginable. Therefore, the expected situation happened. The local media swarmed over, and the city's TV stations sent people over for interviews, so much so that the municipal government was alerted. As a result, the next day, the mayor of Binhai City personally invited Lu Chen, Chen Fei, and Shifang to a banquet at the Binhai International Hotel, accompanied by many government officials and local celebrities in the arts circle. Of course, the mayor was not just looking for an excuse to treat them to dinner or to meet the big stars. Binhai City was preparing to increase its investment in culture in the next few years and build its own cultural brand. It was planning to launch its first cultural festival. As the biggest star from Binhai, Lu Chen was certainly listed at the top of the list of invited guests. This time, Lu Chen brought Chen Fei and Shifang to Binhai, which was an unexpected surprise for Binhai City. If the 3 of them could be invited, it would be hard for the cultural festival to fail. As for Lu Chen, it was impossible for him not to give face to the mayor. It was reasonable for him to support the local cultural festival, so he naturally agreed. Of course, he could only represent himself. Chen Fei and Shifang still had to discuss with the cultural festival's organizing committee and their managers, as it involved the appearance fee and schedule. However, with Lu Chen's relationship, Chen Fei and Shifang expressed that they would seriously consider it, so the host and guests were happy. However, after the banquet, Lu Chen had to run away with the 2 heavenly queens, as many fans had rushed over from other places, and his home in Jingsheng district had been exposed online. If he continued to stay there, it would probably be difficult to go out, let alone have fun. Just the security issue alone would be very troublesome, and he would not have a good time. Chen Fei and Shifang understood that as a famous public figure, it was difficult to enjoy the life of an ordinary person. Therefore, on the afternoon of July 4th, the group returned to Hangzhou. Shifeng met up with her assistant in Hangzhou and flew back to Xiangjiang that night, returning to the concert at the end of August. As for Lu Chen and Chen Feier, they flew back to Beijing on the 5th. Except for the last concert, the recording of the first season of China's Voice was completed. Lu Chen put the focus of his work on the upcoming filming of You from the Star. You from the Star was undoubtedly the first self-produced drama project after the official establishment of Chen Fei Media, and this new drama had attracted the attention of all walks of life from the beginning, which was also what fans and audiences had been looking forward to for a long time. The two TV series, Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance, had achieved great success, making the couple idol duo of Lu Chen and Chen Feier a diamond on the TV screen. No one doubted the success of You from the Star. Precisely because of this, there were simply too many people who wanted to participate in the shooting of the new drama and get a piece of the pie. Many film and television entertainment agencies in Beijing, as well as artists in the circle, racked their brains to borrow favors and relationships to come to Chen Fei Media, which made Chen Fei Media suffer a lot of harassment. Lu Shi's phone calls never stopped all day long. At present, the confirmed partners include Beijing Television, Zhidong Satellite TV, South Korea's KGS TV, SPG, Crown Pictures. The TV series has not yet started shooting, and there are many big companies who have taken the initiative to come to talk about brand cooperation, such as Zhonghua Automobile, Huaxia Electronics, Pepsi, China Bank, and other Fortune 500 companies, which are willing to pay for product placement. Even if Lu Chen requests to control product placement, the agreements or signed contracts that have been reached can bring hundreds of millions of income to Chen Fei Media, which is enough to offset the cost of shooting and production. But Lu Chen did not get carried away by this. For the TV series, You from the Star, Lu Chen spent far more time polishing the script than Autumn in My Heart and Full of Romance. The original script has been revised many times. This time was squeezed out bit by bit from his daily life. He deliberated every word and sentence by himself, and did not ask others to do it. Although the main plot, character settings, and story outline of the script came from the memory of the dream world, Lu Chen did not adopt a direct method to save time and effort, but carefully carved on the basis of the original work. The original work was indeed very popular in the dream world, but in terms of setting and plot, there were also a lot of places that were criticized by people. For example, bugs were flying everywhere, and the later plot was seriously dragged, which all relied on the sweet abuse of the lead actor to drag, and the repeated toss made people feel dull. There was a reason for this situation. The original work was filmed and broadcasted at the same time, so it was inevitable that there would be bugs. The producers obviously did not expect this drama to be so popular. The scriptwriter scratched his head but could not think of a better plot, so he could only repeatedly struggle with the plot of a romantic relationship. These problems were not what Lu Chen wanted to see. The You from the Star he wanted to make should surpass the original work in all aspects, including character settings, story plots, and special effects. Chapter 641. Capital City, New Era Art Park, Chen Fei Media Headquarters. The renovated building looked like it had just been built against the backdrop of the surrounding green trees and small lake, exuding a modern vibe. A large custom-made logo made of high-grade aluminum alloy and the words, Chen Fei Media, were inlaid on the greenish-gray wall, shining brightly under the sun. Chen Fei Media's logo was designed by a famous designer in Capital City. It was a clever combination of the initials, C and F, making it look smart and elegant. With the release of A Chinese Ghost Story across the country, and the popularity of China's Voice, this logo was becoming more and more familiar to the audience. The lower level of Chen Fei Media's headquarters, which used to be the exhibition hall of Yu Jizhong's studio, had now been transformed into a large indoor studio and special effects studio. Chen Fei Media's special effects studio was undoubtedly a very special existence. This special effects studio was named DreamWorks. Although it had only been established for a short period of time, it was big in terms of staff and investment, surpassing the other departments in the company. Excluding the expensive high-tech studio, DreamWorks' high-end professional computer equipment alone cost $15 million, and that did not include other special effects production equipment. The budget Lu Chen prepared for DreamWorks' investment was 100 million, but for a special effects studio that was like a gold-swallowing monster, it would not take long. The production of special effects for movies and TV series had always been a project that required a lot of investment and output. Ordinary film companies could not afford it. In China, even large film companies would outsource the production of special effects to professional companies, including famous studios in Japan, Korea, and even America's Hollywood. It was rare for a company like Xinfei Media to have its own special effects team, and many people in the industry did not think much of it. Special effects production was too expensive, and building a studio was even more expensive. Not to mention the investment of equipment, the allocation and training of personnel were a big problem. The real top talents were basically concentrated in developed countries, and the second and third-rate special effects engineers in China, including Xiangjiang, were useless. Those who graduated from college lacked experience. All these factors added up would definitely become a big burden for the company. Many people did not understand why Lu Chen would set up his own special effects studio. From a business point of view, it was too risky, and they thought that Lu Chen was overconfident and arrogant. However, there was a reason why Lu Chen founded the Dream Workshop. First of all, this special effects team was to serve his big IP plan. In the future, the deep development of the big IP of wuxia would involve a lot of special effects production, whether it was a movie or a TV series. It was not the best choice to outsource this very important part to other companies. First of all, wuxia was a very localized thing. The special effects teams in Europe, America, Japan, and South Korea would create the corresponding content. They lacked the foundation of understanding on a cultural level. It would definitely take a lot of time and energy to get used to it, and the cost would definitely be high. On the other hand, although the local special effects studios and special effects production companies were developing rapidly, they were far behind the foreign countries in terms of technical accumulation and experience. They could only use the strategy of low prices to maintain their survival. In turn, the local film and television companies tried to lower their prices. You get what you pay for, and the vicious cycle of competition between low prices and low quality led to a large number of so-called 50 cents special effects on the screen, which were ridiculed and criticized by the audience. Therefore, those domestic blockbusters that easily invested hundreds of millions would definitely choose American Hollywood teams to produce the special effects. However, the final product would always be a step or two lower than the real American blockbusters. Other than the lack of investment, the other reason was that the other party had the right to speak. The reason why Lu Chen established the Dream Workshop was because he did not want others to take advantage of his weakness. It might be a difficult path to tread. The initial investment was huge, but there was not much of a return. However, he was willing to lead the team and work hard to carve out a place of their own. Because only Lu Chen himself knew what kind of special effects he wanted. In the room next to the recording studio, the air conditioner was full. Dozens of computer equipment were running, and the entire wall was occupied by big and small LCD screens. In front of it was a long work console. The main 75-inch screen showed the image of a vast starry sky. A very sci-fi spaceship was slowly moving through the vacuum, its tail spewing blue flames. Although it was silent, it still gave people a very shocking feeling. And the destination of the spaceship was the azure blue Earth. Very good, Lu Chen nodded with satisfaction and said to the middle-aged man standing beside him, "Thank you for your hard work." This middle-aged man was the special effects engineer that Lu Chen poached from Xiangjiang. His name was Richard. He graduated from the University of Southern California, USC, in the United States in his early years, and his major was post-production special effects. USC was located in downtown Los Angeles, California. It was founded by the Board of Supervisors in 1880. It was the oldest private university in California and the west coast of the United States. It was also one of the world's leading private comprehensive academic research schools. Its film program had the best reputation in the industry. It was really easy for USC film graduates to find a job in Hollywood, and Richard was no exception. He had worked in many special effects studios. 5 years ago, due to personal reasons, he returned to his hometown, Xiangjiang, and became the chief special effects engineer in a special effects company in Xiangjiang. Richard had also participated in the special effects production of many domestic and foreign blockbusters, and his experience could be said to be incomparably rich. The reason that Lu Chen was able to poach this powerful person, in addition to offering him the highest level of salary in the industry, was that he happened to have a serious disagreement with the company's senior management at that time. It was also thanks to Chen Wenxiang, the director of Xiangjiang Studio, who was well informed enough to contact Richard as soon as he found out the inside story, that they were able to poach him successfully. Richard's personality was more stubborn, and he had the temperament of an artist. He was willing to come to Beijing to manage the DreamWorks team, in addition to the various conditions promised by Qinfei Media, and also because he admired Lu Chen himself. The details are not good enough. In response to Lu Chen's praise, Richard shook his head with a serious expression and said, "There are also some problems with the rendering and color scheme. They still have too little experience, so there are more problems." Richard had strict requirements for the projects he handled. This habit was brought over from Hollywood, but it was not suitable in Xiangjiang. This was because the higher the requirements, the higher the cost. This was also the reason why he had a disagreement with the company's senior management. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Take it slow, this is just the beginning." Lu Chen had enough patience and was willing to pay the price because he believed that it was definitely worth it. Chapter 642. In terms of film and television special effects, there was still a considerable gap between China and the world's advanced standards. This was not just in terms of technology, but also in terms of creativity, concept, design, and most importantly, foundation. The simplest example was the material library for special effects production. The top special effects studios in Europe and America had a deep foundation in this area. For example, for an explosion effect, a domestic production company might only have a few or a dozen explosion effects in their material library, but the former often had hundreds or thousands of explosion effects. Some special effects materials could not even be bought with money. They were the exclusive secrets of a famous studio. Even if the other party was willing to sell, the price was usually very high. Good special effects software usually came from Europe and America. A set of legal software installed in a workstation, and the fees were calculated by the year. Buying the materials was like running water. Ordinary small companies could not afford it. An American special effects company used more than $100 million for a renderer. In the end, they had to develop it themselves, but they also needed to hire a large number of professional technicians, and the expenses were not low. To catch up in China, money alone was not enough. They also needed enough time and patience. Because of this, not many film and television production companies were willing to set up their own special effects studios. Most of them chose to outsource. Qinfei Media's special effects studio, DreamWorks Studio, had just been established not long ago. It had no reputation in the industry, nor did it have any works. The studio currently had more than 80 employees, but only 3 were certified special effects engineers. Li Cha was the only one certified by the American Industry Association as a senior special effects engineer. Their technical strength was very weak. Computer technology was very advanced, and software was much more intelligent than before. Big foreign special effects studios or companies often had hundreds or even thousands of employees, and the annual salary was very high. In comparison, DreamWorks Studio was weaker than a baby. Not to mention surpassing their foreign counterparts, just catching up to the world's mainstream standards would require a lot of investment and a long time of accumulation. Most of the employees in DreamWorks Studio were very young, with an average age of less than 25. Many of them had just graduated from university, or had graduated for a year or two, and lacked sufficient work experience. Other than the low salary, their only advantage was that they were willing to learn. You from the Star is the first special effects production project that Lu Chen entrusted to DreamWorks Workshop. Of course, he only hid this ambition in the bottom of his heart, and he didn't even mention it to Qinfei. Not to mention anything else, Lu Chen had to give face to Li Mushi just because of the Lu family class. Without the latter's consent, there would be no Lu family class, which was now famous in Hong Kong. Moreover, after the Lu family class returned to the capital, the Borui Club specially set aside a place for Wan Yong and others to train. Otherwise, the headquarters of Chunfei Media would not be settled. Li Mushi kicked Wan Yong's arm with a flying leg, forcing him to retreat to the edge of the ring. But she didn't take advantage of the victory to pursue. Instead, she turned around and waved her fist at Lu Chen, who had just come over. "Come on." Everyone's eyes suddenly focused on Lu Chen, and Wan Yong took the opportunity to retreat from the ring. Lu Chen couldn't help rubbing his nose and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't do it? Could it be that this young miss had called him over in the afternoon to have a battle with him? Li Mushi was sweating and full of vigor. Hearing this, she immediately glared and said, "What are you afraid of? Are you still a man? Quickly come up and exchange a few moves with me. We must determine the victor today." The last time she fought with Lu Chen was a few months ago. At that time, the two sides ended in a draw. That was the result of Lu Chen's deliberate letting her win. Li Mushi must be clear in her heart, so she was very unconvinced and wanted revenge today. Chapter 643. Although they were not very familiar friends, Lu Chen still had a good understanding of Li Mushi's character. The eldest daughter of the Li family had a stubborn temper. Once she decided on something, she would not easily change her mind. Similarly, she had her eyes on him today. If he didn't go to the ring, it would probably be difficult for him to leave the Borui Club. So even though her provocation was very poor, Lu Chen had to eat it. "You forced me to do this." Lu Chen went to the locker room and changed into his fighting suit. He turned over and jumped into the ring. He moved his hands and feet to warm up and said to Li Mushi, "Don't cry when you lose." "Humph." Li Mushi snorted and said disdainfully, "Let's see who will cry." Having said that, she absolutely did not dare to underestimate Lu Chen. Even if she had strengthened her training in recent months, she was not sure that she would win against Lu Chen. Since she was a child, Li Mushi has always been regarded as a genius. Whether it was in her studies or many hobbies, she had outstanding talent and had trampled many excellent men under her feet. But when she met Lu Chen, her reputation as a genius was seriously challenged. Needless to say, Lu Chen's talent in music went without saying, but he also showed outstanding creativity in the business field. For example, the concept of online crowdfunding, even her most respected father praised it. After taking over most of the shares from Lu Chen, it expanded to the point where it was eligible to be listed on Nasdaq in just a year or two. Lu Chen, who had transferred to online crowdfunding, did not focus on the entertainment industry. He invested in the establishment of Happy Entertainment, launched a small game called Happy Farm, which became popular all over the country and was sold to QQ Games at a sky-high price. The profits from this investment alone were enough to shame domestic investors. Lu Chen also invested in Star Factory Media. The first program, China's Voice, was still making a lot of money, and it was a money tree that could make money in the long run. Li Mushi returned from abroad to start her career. With her ability and the background and contacts of the Li family, compared with Lu Chen, who was basically just playing around in business, she was still a long way behind. How could she be convinced? She really wanted to give Lu Chen a good beating, so she had been training hard for the past 2 months. Director Li will win. When Li Mushi and Lu Chen put on their protective gear and faced each other in the arena, the lackeys in the crowd cheered loudly for her. Then, everyone cheered and supported Li Mushi, wishing that she could defeat Lu Chen with a few punches and kicks. Li Mushi was unhappy. "So noisy. All of you, get out." This time, it could be said that their bootlicking fell on deaf ears. The group of lackeys hurriedly scampered away, and even Wan Yong did not dare to continue watching the show, leaving the huge room to the two of them. "Pa! Pa!" Li Mushi's fists hit each other, making a dull sound. She stared at Lu Chen like a female leopard hunting for food, and said hatefully, "It's finally quiet. Watch this." As soon as she finished speaking, Li Mushi suddenly launched an attack, pouncing at Lu Chen with lightning speed. She swung her fist towards the left side of Lu Chen's face at lightning speed, and the fist made a hissing sound like a viper's tongue as it pierced through the air. The Li family's Missy was very beautiful, and her figure could be said to be perfect, especially her pair of long legs that were simply breathtaking. She was more than enough to be a model, but that did not mean that she was a spoiled girl. On the contrary, her fighting ability was quite strong, and there were not many opponents in the club. Once she got serious, it was no joke. If this punch landed, it was even possible to knock out Lu Chen. Bang! Seeing that the fiery red glove was about to hit Lu Chen, it was blocked by his left arm in time. But this punch was not the focus of Li Mushi's attack. At the moment when the fist was blocked, she suddenly twisted her leg, and her left leg flew towards Lu Chen's right rib. Deep, fierce, accurate, and fast close combat. If it was an ordinary opponent, they would inevitably suffer under such a fierce and swift attack from Li Mushi. However, Lu Chen's reaction was faster than Li Mushi's attack. He seemed to have already predicted the opponent's follow-up move. Li Mushi had just lifted her leg, and her whole body rushed forward, heavily crashing into the latter's chest. Bang! Another dull sound. Li Mushi did not manage to kick Lu Chen, but was instead knocked back a few steps, and fell heavily on the ring with her back on the ground. But she quickly jumped up with the momentum of the fall, and her eyes were full of unwillingness as she stared at Lu Chen. After not fighting for 2 or 3 months, Lu Chen had become stronger. This was what Li Mushi was most depressed about. People like Lu Chen, who mingled in the entertainment circle, usually had a full schedule, and it was impossible for him to take a lot of time to train. Then how did he maintain his condition and constantly improve himself? The fist never leaves the hand and the song never leaves the mouth. Fighting skills originate from ordinary hard training. Strength is accumulated bit by bit. Lu Chen's performance was too monstrous. Clenching her teeth, Li Mushi, who was unwilling to admit defeat, attacked again. But Lu Chen chose to defend more. He parried left and right, constantly blocking Li Mushi's fierce attacks like a storm. His breath and footsteps were not chaotic at all, and his defense was very methodical. But he was not purely defending. When he was forced to the edge of the ring by Li Mushi, he suddenly counterattacked, and often succeeded in interrupting Li Mushi's offensive. Li Mushi became more and more depressed as she fought. After all, she was a woman, and her physical strength was naturally at a disadvantage. She attacked so fiercely at the beginning, but later she could not persist. After dozens of rounds, she was still sweating and panting. "I don't want to fight anymore, I don't want to fight anymore." She finally realized that she would lose face if she continued to fight like this. She irritably took off her boxing gloves and threw them at Lu Chen. "You're really not happy." Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Sister Mushi, can you be reasonable?" Li Mushi stared at him for a moment, and suddenly lowered her voice and said, "Come here, I have something to say." Lu Chen was vigilant, but he still walked over. "What's wrong?" Unexpectedly, Li Mushi suddenly grabbed his hand, sent it to her mouth, and fiercely bit it. Ah! Caught off guard, Lu Chen didn't have time to shake his hand. He said in pain, "Are you a dog?" Li Mushi let go of his hand, and a smile returned on her face. "You're wrong, I'm a tiger." Lu Chen was very speechless as he looked at his left hand that was bitten. The back of his hand had swollen, 2 rows of deep teeth marks were clearly visible, and the broken skin was oozing blood. The bite was really fierce. Lu Chen was not a masochist, but he could see that Li Mushi was in a bad mood today, so he didn't care about this matter and asked, "Did you encounter something? Can you tell me?" Li Mushi suddenly froze, and after a moment said, "I like women." Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 644. It was no secret that Li Mushi was a lesbian among her close friends. Lu Chen had known it for a long time, and he had reminded his sister to be vigilant against this young lady of the Li family. He smiled and said, "What a coincidence, I also like women." Lu Chen's teasing tone made Li Mushi glare at him fiercely, and then a trace of depression appeared on her face. After a while, she sat down on the edge of the ring and said, "Yesterday, my family forced me to go on a blind date again. Lu Chen suddenly understood. Not to mention the dignified Li family, even an ordinary family would not have peace of mind if they had a daughter like Li Mushi. Although Lu Chen had not seen Li Mushi's parents, he believed that they must be worried about Li Mushi's marriage, so it was normal for them to arrange a blind date. Compared with the more relaxed social environment abroad, the domestic tradition was more conservative. Such a blind date undoubtedly made Li Mushi very upset, but she could not be rebellious, so she was naturally in a bad mood. Lu Chen took 2 bottles of mineral water from the tray next to him, sat down next to Li Mushi, handed her a bottle of water, and thought of a solution for her at the same time. Then you can find a boyfriend to deal with for a while. Humph. Li Mushi rolled her eyes. Do you think that my Empress Dowager can't see through a fake boyfriend? I think you have watched too many melodramatic TV dramas. What kind of bad ideas come up with? Lu Chen said with a smile, then I have no other way. This is the best way I can think of. Maybe, Li Mushi showed a thoughtful look, and her eyes became strange as she stared at Lu Chen, or I can find a man to give birth to a child, and then throw it to my Empress Dowager to play. Maybe it can solve the problem. Lu Chen was creeped out by her eyes, and he could not help but move his butt back. Ahem, I think if you really do this, your Empress Dowager is more likely to kill you. This young lady's brain circuit was really a little different from that of ordinary people. Lu Chen felt that it was better to keep a distance. Li Mushi bit her lips and suddenly threw away the mineral water in her hand. She stood up and said, let's have a few more moves. This time, you must show all your skills. I don't want you to give in. Lu Chen sighed. He calmly got up and said, since you want to be tortured, I'll fulfill your wish. Li Mushi stared at him, feeling that she had bitten too lightly. 3 minutes later. The young miss of the Li family staggered, lost her balance, and fell heavily onto the arena once more. Lu Chen retracted his fists and smiled. Is that enough? In the second round, he followed Li Mushi's request and did not go easy on her. He knocked her down 3 times in just a dozen rounds, and this was the 4th time. Compared to before, not only did the gap in strength between the 2 sides not shrink, but it had also widened a lot. Li Mushi lay on her back on the arena. Her towering chest rose and fell violently. Her crystal-clear jade-like skin was full of sweat. Her pair of black eyebrows wrinkled with a bit of pain, and her eyes were full of unwillingness. Lu Chen waited quietly for a moment. He was a little surprised to see that Li Mushi had not gotten up yet. He quickly took off his boxing gloves and leaned over to pull Li Mushi. Are you all right? Could it be that this young miss was so shocked by him that she couldn't even stand up? He had a sense of propriety when he attacked. Li Mushi did not resist Lu Chen's help. She was pulled up by him, and her face returned to normal. I'm fine. I'm just wondering how you usually train. Why are you getting stronger and stronger? This was the strangest thing about Li Mushi. Lu Chen wanted to create, sing, shoot TV and movies, and run all over the world. Even if he insisted on exercising every day, it was impossible for him to have such training conditions as the Borui Club. There were the best training equipment and first-class sparring partners here. In order to defeat Lu Chen, she also deliberately strengthened the actual combat training. As a result, she lost even more miserably. For Li Mushi's doubt, Lu Chen touched his nose and didn't know how to answer. He couldn't say that he didn't know, could he? Since experiencing that dream, in addition to possessing the wealth of memories of a world, Lu Chen clearly felt the changes that had taken place in himself. His spirit, will, and even his body were becoming more and more powerful. Big improvements in his memory, sharp reactions, and the effect of daily exercise were excellent. His energy was getting more and more exuberant. Usually, when he made love with Chen Fei, in bed, it often ended with the latter begging for mercy. Lu Chen himself felt that these kinds of changes were incredible. He could only attribute it to the gift of God. In the arena, not to mention facing Li Mushi, even if Mo Ran, the memory mentor, fought with him, Lu Chen had full confidence to win. It was just that he couldn't answer Li Mushi honestly. He couldn't say that he was cheated, could he? I'm talented. For Lu Chen's answer, Li Mushi's response was to raise a middle finger. I'm not going to talk to you. Let's go to the tea room and sit down. I have something to tell you. Lu Chen secretly breathed a sigh of relief, hurriedly went to the locker room to change clothes, and then went to the tea room with Li Mushi. From the arena area to the tea room, there was an indoor tennis court in the middle. To be more precise, the former tennis court has now been transformed into an exclusive training ground for the Lu family squad. So when Lu Chen passed by, he stopped for a moment and looked at their training. After the Lu family squad finished shooting A Chinese Ghost Story in Hong Kong, they returned to China and were arranged to return to the Borui Club to continue training. Li Mushi gave them face by vacating the indoor tennis court. The original net racks were all removed, and the ground was relayed with thick flexible plastic. There were various specially customized training equipment on it. Among them, more than a dozen wooden poles used to practice Wing Chun fist were very eye-catching. In addition, there were as many as 4 wires hanging on the top. A member of the Lu family squad was being hung and flying in the air, making various movements. The lens of a high-definition digital camera followed him closely and filmed all his moves. Li Mushi curled her lips disdainfully and said, "Is it really useful to play these tricks? Those Hollywood action blockbusters don't have such flowery fists and impractical kicks." Most of the members of the Lu family squad were originally from the Borui Club. They were trained as the exclusive security force of the Li family. Naturally, they learned practical fighting skills. But now Lu Chen asked them to train something very different. Several people's moves and styles were completely acting. It gave people a very fake feeling, and there was no strength in their punches. Li Mushi naturally couldn't stand it and couldn't help complaining a few words. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.